Delighted to be joined online by Ray Houghton to reflect on the Euro Nations action, the table qualifier action where Ireland played against Bulgaria and Finland. And I suppose it was the first real sort of test for Stephen Kenny in charge, his first competitive international matches. And I suppose away in Bulgaria, I suppose a point for a first outing would have been seen as a sort of good result, even though we were probably a bit toothless, I suppose, in terms of attacking front. And I suppose very disappointing sort of performance against Finland. But I suppose it's a new chapter in Irish soccer, and Stephen has only got a week or so, or 2 or 3 training sessions with the side. What was your take on it, Ray?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be difficult because the players are not fit. Forget about many sessions Stephen's had. The reality is, the players are only coming back to pre-season training, and I think that was evident in the 2 games that I've seen where they looked a bit leggy, particularly in the second game. We must take that into consideration, when we're looking at what's gone on in the 2 matches so far. I thought, possession-wise, we were better against Bulgaria. I think in the game against Finland, I thought we were a little bit too deep. I thought we were easy to play against. I think people were getting in behind us. There was a lot of spaces. And I think that will change. I think the more games that they play together, the more they get to understand Stephen's way of thinking and playing, then we'll see a difference. But what Stephen will have learned is a few things about his players and the mentality, about them as individuals, about who needs an arm around them, who needs a little bit extra training, and also what the media are like. I'm sure initially it was all wonderful, but once you start to lose games, that's when it can turn, and it can turn very quickly, and you have to be ready for that.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ray, I suppose it is really a warm-up games for the big one against Slovakia coming down the road. And I suppose one thing that people took out of the game was mainly against Finland was probably at times we were outnumbered in midfield. And probably with Slovakia coming down the road, we know the quality of the likes of Marek Hamsik and the likes of Jurcic and players of this real quality who play at a high level in Serie A, good real technical operators. Is that a bit of concern? Do we need more bodies in that central area? I know Stephen likes to play with a tree high up the field at all times.
Well, I think the biggest worry is their away form. I was looking at it, and I think we've only had one away win, which was against Gibraltar, when we struggled to beat them. That's the only away win in the last 3 years. I think the one before that was Wales away when we won 1-0. That's it. So that's a bigger concern is when we do play away from home, we seem to struggle very much. Now it comes down to, you talk about did we get overrun in midfield? I don't think it necessarily was that. I just thought we looked disjointed. That was the thing I seen. And I thought it was easy for Finland to get into areas between our midfield and defence too easily. I think if we're going to play, we have to be concertina together. So the defence have to push up closer to the midfielders. We have to push up closer to the attackers. And I thought very much that Adam Ida got isolated. A lot of times he was running the channel, got in possession of the ball, turned round, and the nearest man was 40 yards away. Can't do that. He's only run up there. Then if it's O'Dowder's playing on the right, or Conlan playing on the left, someone's got to get higher up the field and get closer to them. And also with the midfielders, I think Malumbi on one side and Brady on the other. Once the ball gets played forward, you have to make up the ground. You can't be up to develop and then start to make the run. You've got to be up there a little bit quicker. And I just think that comes down to the fitness levels. I think it'll come in time. But, as you mentioned, Slovakia is the important one. It's only 4 weeks away. I think in the interim period, the players might get 4 matches, maybe 5 at the most, between now and then. So, you've got your hope, Steve's got your hope that a lot of our players, not in, teams, first teams, that they get some game time. Because it's one thing training, but it's another thing, you need minutes on the pitch.
And I suppose, Ray, given that we've seen an awful lot of youngsters given their opportunities in these games, like Ida, Malumbu, to mention a few, but given the importance of Slovakia and the importance of what it means in terms of qualifying for a big tournament, it probably sets up the possibility of a home derby against the North or possibly Bosnia, who aren't in really great form themselves either. Would you be saying we probably need to go with the experience hands, the likes of Robbie Brady, Shane Long, these boys, Seamus Coleman. I know Coleman really the feature, but these guys need to really start over the sort of youngsters, given the importance of the game, because we know Shane Long's reputation in the past.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with those though, is when you look around, it's been a feature for the last number of games, the lack of goals. We just don't look like we're going to score too many. In general play, we're struggling to break the opposition down. We're not getting enough good crosses into the goals. We're not getting enough balls into the goals. And where we've looked dangerous is from set plays, and that's where you've got Duffy coming forward, and one or two others. But there's not a great deal else, so that's something that you'll be looking at. I mean, is it putting the youngsters going to be a major problem? I don't know how they're going to handle the. Don't forget, there's no fans.
Yeah.
So I think that would be something that's not going to worry. It's not going to be overawed by the occasion, or the home support are right on top of you, and you can't handle the pressure. So I don't know, but Stephen will have a sure, having seen the players in the last two games, he'll know who to rely on, and that's one of the things you have to look at. Who can you rely on in a game of this magnitude to get your result? And you're just hopeful that you have a little bit of luck along the way as well. I think the last game, Robinson had a great chance, didn't he? Actually thought it was a really good save because the goalkeeper stood up nice and tall for a long time. He didn't go to ground, so it made it much more difficult for Robinson to finish it. I think people are a little bit critical, only a bit disappointed he didn't score. But I think you've got to give a credit to the goalkeeper for doing what he had to do to keep it out. But that's a little bit of luck you need. You score a goal, and all of a sudden things change. And I think the first goal against Slovakia is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ray, given the formation, it looks like Stephen prefers this 4-3-3. I know that's who he went with for the two games, and we presume that's what he'll go with against Slovakia. Does that mean the possibility that obviously most Irish fans would like to see both Doherty and Coleman in the team, given that they're probably the two standout names really that are playing in the Premier League at the moment in terms of Tottenham and Everton, Seamus being the captain of Everton, and people are saying, well, you could probably have Seamus at right back and Doherty at right midfield, and you'd have a real good line going down that sort of flank. But with the three in midfield, does that always make that option impossible as such?
Yeah, well, not really, because there's another way you could look at this. You play with three centre-halves. Henry Stevens, his best ball this season, has been when he's been the left wing-back for Sheffield United, or last season, and it's the same with Doherty. When you look at he's far better going forward than he is, when he's asked to defend. He likes to have the game in front of him. He likes to break into the space, but he likes to have cover. He likes to have people behind him that can get any cover in positions. And you see that when he plays, whether that be Dendonka playing in that position, whether it be Willie Bolly, there's others, Cody, there's others that are playing in positions to help him out. So he doesn't always have to go back to defend. And I think he's far better suited to that. So that might be something that Stephen will look at. He'll factor in for them. He'll be assessing it for the next few weeks. You'll be having many a call with the players, just to touch base with them. You'll be hopeful to get across to see the players in action when it comes to games that they can, because I think that's hugely important to see who's on form, who's playing well, who's confident. Because all these matter going into the game, because it's not a game you can take lightly. It's not the ones that you can risk players in. You have to be really assured that the ones that you're picking are on form, confident, and getting a result and an important result for you as well.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ray, in terms of that midfield makeup, I know I'm spending a bit of time talking about it, but in terms of the likes of Conor Hourihan, there's a real sort of attacking sort of midfielder around that sort of central spot, and you have the likes of Jeff Hendricks, who's probably an orthodox midfielder as such. Does it show up that without that defensive midfielder shielding Egan and Duffy, that there are balls that Ireland can get exploited by that sort of 5-yard sort of slide pass or that killer sort of pass? And maybe while Whelan sometimes he wasn't beloved in terms of his creativity, but in terms of what he did in terms of his defensive cover, is that coming to pass now, given the likes of Hamsik now will probably drop into those pockets in that sort of free roll at the edge of the box? Is that a worry if he's not man marked or picked up?
No, because you've got James McCarthy. I watched James at the back end last season for Crystal Palace playing in that position, and he done it very well. He was actually in the team ahead of Milivojevic. who's been a mainstay player for Crystal Palace for a number of years, but James was in on form, he was in on merit. So that might be something that the manager will be looking at. It's whether he goes with two sitting midfielders and just one ahead of him. They're the options that Stevens has got. He's got players that he knows that can play in them positions a little bit deeper. Then it might be a case of just feeling out the opposition, making it tight. Putting a bit of pressure back onto them as the home side. They've got immediate braces. The expectation is on them. And then you can maybe open it up a little bit. So it's got a variety of things that you can do. You've got to pick the best option for the best group of players that you've got. And there's where it's a slight problem. Because he's only 2 games into his tenure. He's still learning. He's still learning as far as who the players are. The ones that he can really trust as individuals. The ones that are, really good when it comes to that bit of pressure that's coming on him. He's still learning about that, and that's the tough part for Stephen going into this match.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ray, just before I finish, just a quick glance across some of the results involving nations near us at home. And I suppose England, I suppose, were less than impressive, but they got the victory over Iceland towards the end. But sort of alarming, probably a lack of creativity in that midfield behind the likes of Sterling and Kane and Sancho. And in terms of the showed up a bit of defensive fragilities. And while Wales, I suppose, got the both wins, but in many cases were very lucky and fortunate to come out with 6 points, because Finland had their chances and it was only a last gasp goal from Wales that got the 3 points against Bulgaria.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't really put any store by what's happened in these games so far, because they've come so early in the season. I'll come back to, we've not even had a league game yet. The lads are still in pre-season training. Listen, many years ago, when I played for the Republic of Ireland against Manchester United and the testimonial before a ball of the season was kicked, we beat them comfortably enough, and United didn't look very good. And I remember the players talking, how did we think United would do that season? And, the consensus of opinion was maybe they wouldn't be as good as we thought. They won the league by a country mile. So you don't read anything into pre-season at all. It really doesn't count for too much, to be honest. What matters is when there's something on the line, and that's Slovakia. That's when you're playing in the big matches, when it counts, when there's points at stake or qualification for the big tournaments are at stake. That's when I'll judge the likes of Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland and the Republic of England. At the moment, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest, because I don't think it's a big concern. The concern is in 4 weeks' time when you're playing in matches that matter.
Yeah, and Ray, you mentioned there about Slovakia, the matches that matter, and I suppose very similar to them, I suppose Northern Ireland would be up against Bosnia, but you look at Bosnia, a team that we had problems in the past with, like Zeko and sort of Pjanic as well. So I suppose in terms of, it's very, for Stephen to do his homework now in the next month or so is very going to be critical, but not having any of his backroom team able to scout the opposition as well, it probably makes it that much sort of harder as well, because you get to see the games, the videos, but in terms of having your trusted right sidekick delivering his reports, you're sort of going in a bit blind. But I suppose that's the way for both teams.
Yeah, that's the way it's for both teams, isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, you can't assess matches, and it's just, they've got some standout players who will come to the fore in this game. This is the time where you look to some of your experienced players, the ones that, as I said, that you trust, who that can actually handle the pressure, and you just hope they perform on the night. And a little bit of luck goes a long way. But my biggest concern is just an away form. And as I'll go back to that one win against Gibraltar in 3 years, and we struggled. So can we turn that around? That's the first thing. Can we get over that? Can we have a positive attitude going into it? And that's where Stephen's got to work his magic. He's got to get into the players, tell them to forget about what's happened in the past. This is something new. What's at stake is getting a place in the final. You said about Bosnia and Northern Ireland. Got watched Northern Ireland the other evening. To be fair, they didn't play very well at all against Norway. They got well beaten. It was 5-1. It could have been anything, to be honest. And Bosnia, probably aren't the side that they once were a couple of seasons ago. So that's what's on offer. And with that comes matches at the Aviva as well. So there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of incentives, and we've got to be ready for it. Simple as that. Stephen will do his stuff. It's up to the players.
On that note, Ray Houghton, a pleasure as always hearing your views and reflecting on Ireland's Nation League's matches against Bulgaria and Finland, and giving your thoughts on the upcoming game against Slovakia. Ray, stay safe and well in these sort of troubles sometimes, and hopefully, please God, we'll speak to you sometime again in the near future. Cheers, Ray.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much.